The plasma bolt left the instructor's rifle at 1,700 meters per second, a coil of superheated gas wrapped in magnetic containment bright enough to blind. Cadet Lena Koval didn't flinch. She raised her left hand, bare, no glove, and caught it mid-flight like someone plucking an apple from a tree. For half a second the training deck went silent. Then she smiled, wound up her arm, and threw it back. The Hegemony Forward Academy sat in high orbit above Proxima b, a sprawling ring of titanium and carbon composite that housed 1,200 cadets from 47 member species. Humans had been part of the hegemony for only 3 standard years, which meant most instructors still treated Earthborn recruits like novelties, curious, soft, probably fragile. Lena Koval had heard the whispers her first week. They called her species the water mammals because Earth was 70% ocean. They said human bones were hollow like bird skeletons, that her people couldn't survive real gravity or real combat. She never corrected them. She just kept her head down, ran the obstacle courses, and logged perfect marks in zero-G navigation. Her bunkmate was a Thrin named Kessa, four-armed and covered in bioluminescent scales that pulsed when she was annoyed. Kessa liked Lena because Lena didn't talk much and always gave her the top bunk, which had better airflow. They ate breakfast together in the communal mess, protein cakes and synthesized fruit paste, and Kessa would complain about Instructor Varrow, the Krayler who ran advanced combat drills. "He's a tyrant," Kessa said one morning, her scales flickering amber. "Yesterday he made Cadet Joran hold a plasma shield for 20 minutes straight." Joran's from a low-grav world. His arms seized up. Varrow just laughed. Lena spooned paste into her mouth. It tasted like synthetic berries and regret. Why didn't anyone report him? Because he's decorated, 3 campaigns. He's got medals older than most of us. Kessa's secondary arms drummed the table. And he hates humans. Says your species got into the hegemony through pity, not merit. Lena didn't react. She'd heard worse. Back on Earth, her older brother had been career military, Marine Corps, 2 tour in the Pacific Theater before the first contact. He taught her to box when she was 6, to shoot when she was 10, and to never let someone see you sweat. She swallowed the paste and stood. "I'm going to be late for drills." Kessa caught her wrist with one upper hand. "Lena, seriously. Don't give Varrow a reason. He's looking for one." Lena smiled, small and tight. "I won't." The training deck was a cathedral of steel and light, a space large enough to fit 3 football fields side by side. Holographic terrain shifted every session: urban rubble, jungle canopy, open desert. Today it was a crater field, pocked with blast scars and jagged rock formations that glowed faintly under simulated starlight. 40 cadets stood in formation, their breaths misting in the cold, recycled air. Instructor Varrow paced in front of them, his armor gleaming like polished obsidian. Krayler were tall, nearly 8 feet when fully extended, with exoskeletons that clicked softly when they moved. Varrow's helm had 3 optical sensors arranged in a triangle, and all of them were locked on Lena. "Cadet Koval," he said, his voice a grating hum through his translator collar. "Step forward." Lena moved. Her boots crunched on the synthetic gravel. She stopped 3 paces from him and stood at attention, chin-level, eyes forward. Varrow circled her slowly. "You passed evasion protocols last week with a perfect score." "Yes, instructor." "You completed the endurance maze in under standard time." "Yes, instructor." He stopped in front of her, his sensors word focusing. "Do you know what I think, cadet?" "No, instructor. I think your scores are inflated. I think your species is being coddled. I think you don't belong here." He gestured to the rest of the formation. "These cadets have trained their entire lives. They come from warrior cultures. You come from a planet that only just discovered faster-than-light travel. You're a tourist." Lena kept her face blank. Her pulse was steady. She'd learned long ago that silence was armor. Varrow turned to the formation. "Today we're running live-fire scenarios. Real plasma, real consequences. If you get hit, medical will patch you up. If you flinch, you fail. He picked up his rifle from a rack, a sleek Hegemony-issue plasma carbine with a glowing charge coil. Cadet Koval will demonstrate first. Kessa's voice crackled over the squad comms channel. Lena, don't. Varrow muted the channel with a flick of his gauntlet. Cadet Koval. Stand at the 30-meter mark. When I fire, you will evade. Understood. Lena walked to the mark. The rest of the cadets shuffled uneasily. Live-fire drills weren't uncommon, but they usually involved clear safety protocols, barriers, shields, medical teams on standby. This felt different. This felt personal. Varrow raised the rifle. On my mark. Lena bent her knees slightly, weight on the balls of her feet. Her brother's voice echoed in her head. Watch the shooter's shoulder, not the barrel. The shoulder moves first. Mark. The plasma bolt screamed across the distance, a streak of white-hot light wrapped in a magnetic field. It moved fast, faster than sound, faster than most biologicals could track. Lena saw it coming. She saw the way Varrow's shoulder twitched a fraction of a second before he pulled the trigger, saw the coil flare, saw the bolt's trajectory as clear as if someone had drawn a line in the air. She raised her left hand. The bolt hit her palm with a sound like a thunderclap. The magnetic containment field shuddered, flickering, but it held. The plasma hissed and spat against her skin, hot enough to vaporize steel, but her hand didn't burn. She felt the heat, felt the raw energy coiling in her grip like a living thing. For half a second she just stood there holding it, feeling its weight and fury. Then she smiled. She cocked her arm back and threw. The bolt shot across the deck like a comet. It slammed into Varrow's chest plate with a crack that echoed through the chamber. His armor splintered, molten alloy dripping to the floor. He staggered backward, smoke rising from the crater in his torso, and fell to one knee. The rifle clattered from his hands. The training deck was silent. Lena lowered her arm. Her palm was unmarked. Permission to return to formation, instructor. The medical team arrived in under a minute. 2 Thrin medics hauled Varrow to his feet, their bioluminescent scales flashing red with alarm, and rushed him out on a hover stretcher. The crater in his chest wasn't lethal. Kraler exoskeletons were redundant, layered over softer internal tissue, but the humiliation was. Lena watched him go, her face calm, her hands at her sides. The other cadets stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Kessa was the first to break ranks. She jogged over, her 4 arms gesturing wildly. Lena, what the hell was that? He told me to evade, Lena said. I evaded. You caught a plasma bolt with your hand. It wasn't that hard. Kessa's scales flickered through half a dozen colors, confusion, awe, disbelief. Humans can do that. Lena shrugged. I can. An hour later she was standing in the commandant's office. The room was austere, all brushed metal and soft blue lighting, with a wide viewport that looked out over Proxima B's rust-colored surface. Commandant Thera sat behind her desk, a Savari with silver skin and compound eyes that shimmered like oil on water. She was reviewing a holographic replay of the training deck incident, watching it from 3 angles. Lena stood at attention in front of the desk, her hands behind her back. Thera paused the replay. Explain. Instructor Varrow ordered me to participate in a live-fire drill. I followed his orders. He ordered you to evade. You caught the bolt and threw it back at him. I evaded the bolt's intended trajectory, Lena said. Catching it was the most efficient method. Thera's compound eyes refracted the light in strange patterns. Cadet Koval, are you aware that no species in Hegemony records has ever caught a plasma bolt barehanded? I wasn't aware, Commandant. Are you enhanced? Cybernetics? Genetic modification? No, Commandant. I'm baseline human. Thera leaned back in her chair. Her exoskeleton creaked softly. Then how? Lena hesitated. She'd spent most of her life downplaying what she could do, hiding it behind careful mediocrity. Her brother had called it the gray man principle. Blend in, don't stand out, survive. But Varrow had forced her hand. Literally, she took a breath. Humans have fast-twitch muscle fibers, high neural plasticity. We're persistence hunters. Our ancestors chased prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're built to adapt, to endure, to react. That doesn't explain catching plasma. Plasma bolts have magnetic containment fields. They're stable but not solid. If you disrupt the field at the right angle, you can redirect the energy. She met Thera's gaze. I saw the trajectory. I adjusted. Thera studied her for a long moment. Instructor Varrow has filed a formal complaint. He's accusing you of insubordination and reckless endangerment. He fired a live round at me without proper safety protocols. He claims it was a training exercise. It was hazing, Lena said, her voice flat. He wanted to humiliate me. He wanted me to fail in front of the others because I'm human. Thera didn't deny it. She closed the holographic display and folded her hands on the desk. You're not wrong. Varrow has a history, but he's also influential. If I discipline him without cause, it creates political complications. Lena's jaw tightened. So I'm the problem. No, you're the solution. Thera stood and walked to the viewport. Proxima B rotated slowly below, its surface scarred with ancient impact craters. The hegemony is old, Cadet. Old cultures, old rivalries. Humans are new. That makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you unpredictable. Varrow thought he could break you. You proved him wrong. That matters. What happens now? Now you finish your training, you pass your exams. You prove that what you did wasn't luck. Thera turned back to her. And you make sure every cadet in this academy knows that humans aren't fragile. We need that, more than you realize. Lena didn't respond. She felt the weight of Thera's words pressing down on her shoulders, heavy and sharp. She'd never wanted to be a symbol. She just wanted to be good enough. Thera dismissed her with a gesture. Lena saluted and left. Back in her bunk, Kessa was waiting. The Thrin was perched on the top bunk, her scales glowing a soft amber. You're famous. Everyone's talking about you. They're calling you the plasma catcher. Lena sat on the lower bunk and pulled off her boots. Great. Seriously, half the cadets think you're terrifying. The other half think you're their new hero. Kessa dropped down to the floor, landing with a soft thump. What did the commandant say? She told me to finish my training. That's it. Lena nodded. She didn't mention the part about being a symbol. She didn't want to think about it. Kessa sat beside her. For what it's worth, I think you're incredible. Varrow had it coming. He's been a bully for years. Lena looked at her. Kessa's secondary arms were fidgeting, a nervous habit. Thanks. Do you think he'll come after you again? Probably. Kessa's scales flickered red. Then we'll watch your back. You're not alone here. Lena smiled, small but real. I know. That night she lay in her bunk and stared at the ceiling. Her palms still tingled where the plasma bolt had struck, a phantom heat that lingered in her nerves. She thought about her brother, wondered what he'd say if he could see her now. He'd probably laugh, then tell her to keep her guard up. She closed her eyes and let exhaustion pull her under, but her dreams were full of fire and light, and the sound of armor cracking. Tomorrow would bring new drills, new tests, new chances to prove herself. She'd face them the same way she always had, head down, hands steady, ready for anything. But now the academy knew what she could do, and that changed everything. Word spread fast. By morning, every cadet in the academy had seen the footage. The mess hall buzzed with conversation. Thrin, Krayler, Sivari, and a dozen other species huddled over data pads, rewatching the moment Lena caught the plasma bolt. Some whispered, some stared. A few nodded in quiet respect. Lena kept her head down and ate her protein cake in silence, but she felt the weight of their attention like a second gravity. Kessa sat across from her, shoveling paste into her mouth with two hands while the other two gestured excitedly. I heard Varrow's out for a week. Medical had to regrow half his chest plate. Serves him right. He'll be back, Lena said. She didn't look up from her tray. Yeah, and when he is, he's going to want revenge. Lena shrugged. Let him. A shadow fell over their table. Lena looked up. A Krayler stood there, taller than Varrow but younger, his exoskeleton a matte gray instead of polished black. His optical sensors were a pale blue. Cadet Koval. Lena set down her spoon. "Can I help you?" "I'm Cadet Joran, second year." I wanted to say, he hesitated, his translator collar clicking softly. "What you did was impressive. Varrow's been hazing first years for cycles. No one's ever stood up to him." "I wasn't trying to stand up to him," Lena said. "I was trying not to get hit." Joran's sensors flickered, a Krayler equivalent of a smile. Still, it mattered. He tapped his chest plate in salute and walked away. Kessa leaned forward. "See, you're a hero." "I'm not a hero, I'm just trying to survive." "Same thing sometimes." The rest of the day was a blur of classes: astrophysics, combat theory, xenobiology. Lena took notes, answered questions when called on, and tried to ignore the stares. But by the time she reached advanced tactics in the afternoon, the mood had shifted. The instructor, a Savari named Kelly's, dimmed the classroom lights and projected a tactical scenario onto the wall: a hostage extraction on a hostile moon. The class murmured, analyzing the terrain and enemy positions. Kelly's pointed at Lena. "Cadet Koval, how would you approach this?" Lena studied the map. The enemy had fortified a canyon chokepoint with automated turrets and overlapping fields of fire. Standard doctrine said you'd call in orbital support, suppress the defenses, then send in a ground team. But standard doctrine assumed you had time and resources. "I'd go in fast and low. Use the canyon walls for cover. Drop a decoy drone to draw turret fire, then breach from the flank while they're recalibrating." Kelly's tilted her head. "That's aggressive, high risk. High reward. If you wait, they execute the hostages. And if the turrets don't take the bait, then you adapt. Turrets follow predictable patterns. You disrupt the pattern, you disrupt the defense." Kelly's compound eyes shimmered, spoken like someone who's done this before. "I haven't," Lena said, "but my brother did. He told me stories." The class went quiet. Human military history was still a curiosity to most species. Earth's wars were small-scale compared to the Hegemony's campaigns, but brutal in their own way. Kelly's nodded slowly. "Your brother was military, Marine Corps, recon. Is he still active?" Lena's throat tightened. "No, he died 3 years ago." First contact incident, friendly fire. Kelly's didn't press further. She returned to the lesson, but Lena felt the shift in the room. Sympathy, maybe, or pity. She hated both. After class, she headed to the training deck alone. She needed to move, to burn off the static energy crawling under her skin. The deck was mostly empty this time of day, just a few cadets running drills in the far corner. Lena found an open space and started running patterns: sprints, pivots, evasive rolls. She pushed herself hard, lungs burning, muscles screaming, until her thoughts blurred into white noise. She didn't hear the footsteps until they were close. She spun, fists up, and found herself face to face with Instructor Varrow. He looked worse than she'd expected. His chest plate was fresh, the alloy still gleaming, but his posture was stiff, his movements careful. His optical sensors locked onto her, and the air between them went cold. "Cadet Koval," he said, his voice a low rasp. "We need to talk." Lena lowered her fists but stayed balanced. "I'm listening." Varrow stepped closer. "You humiliated me in front of my cadets, in front of the entire academy. You fired a live round at me. I was testing you." "You were hazing me," Lena said. "There's a difference." Varrow's sensors flared. "You think you're special because you caught one bolt. You think that makes you a warrior. I think it makes me someone you underestimated." He laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Underestimated? You're human. Your species barely survived your own planet. You're soft, weak. You got lucky." Lena met his gaze. "If you believe that, fire another round. Let's see if I get lucky twice." Varrow's posture shifted. For a moment she thought he might actually do it. Then he stepped back, his exoskeleton clicking softly. "You're not worth the disciplinary hearing. But hear this, cadet. You may have impressed the commandant. You may have impressed your classmates, but you haven't impressed me. And when you fail, when your luck runs out, I'll be there to watch." He turned and walked away, his boots echoing on the deck. Lena stood there, her heart pounding, her hands trembling. She'd won the exchange, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like she'd just painted a target on her back. That night, back in the bunk, Kessa found her sitting on the floor, staring at her hands. "You okay?" Lena nodded. "Yeah. Varrow came to see you, didn't he? How'd you know?" "Because he's predictable. He's a bully. Bullies don't let things go." Kessa sat beside her. "What did he say?" "He said I'm not special, that I got lucky." "Do you believe him?" Lena looked at her hands. They were steady, unmarked, the same hands that had caught fire and thrown it back. "I don't know." Kessa's scales flickered a soft green, the color of calm. "I do. You're not lucky, Lena. You're skilled. There's a difference." She stood and offered a hand. "Come on. Let's get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day." Lena took her hand and let herself be pulled to her feet. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new chances to prove Varrow wrong. She'd face them the same way she always had. But now, at least, she wasn't facing them alone. The final exam came 3 weeks later. The Academy called it the Crucible, a multi-stage combat scenario designed to test every skill a cadet had learned over the past year. It was brutal, unforgiving, and mandatory. Failure meant repeating the year. Success meant graduation and assignment to a hegemony fleet. Lena had spent the weeks preparing, running simulations, drilling with Kessa, and a handful of other cadets who'd started to orbit her like a reluctant squad. They called themselves the Outcasts, misfits from fringe worlds and underestimated species. Lena didn't ask to lead them, but somehow she had. The Crucible began at dawn. 40 cadets entered the main training deck, which had been transformed into a sprawling battlefield. Urban ruins, dense forest, open plains, all stitched together with holographic overlays and live hazards. The objective was simple: retrieve 3 data cores scattered across the terrain, then extract to a designated LZ. Teams of 4. Live ammunition. Real consequences. Lena's team was Kessa, Joran the young Krayler, and a quiet Savari named Mura who specialized in demolitions. They geared up in silence, checking weapons and comms, and entered the deck together. The forest section swallowed them immediately, towering hollow trees with synthetic bark and real undergrowth that rustled underfoot. Somewhere in the distance, plasma fire crackled. Another team had made contact. Kessa moved on point, her bioluminescent scales dimmed to near black for stealth. Joran covered the rear, his sensors sweeping for threats. Mura walked beside Lena, her compound eyes scanning the canopy. They moved fast but careful, weaving between trees and avoiding open sightlines. The first data core was supposed to be in a bunker 2 clicks north. They reached it in under 20 minutes. The bunker was a reinforced structure half buried in the hillside, its entrance guarded by automated turrets and pressure-sensitive mines. Lena crouched behind a tree and studied the defenses. The turrets swept in overlapping arcs, their targeting lasers slicing through the mist. The mines were harder to see, but she could guess their placement based on the terrain, choke points, natural pathways, anywhere a squad would instinctively step. "Mura," Lena said, "can you disable the mines?" Mura nodded. "Give me 3 minutes." "Joran, cover her. Kessa, you're with me." "We're going to draw the turrets." Kessa's scales flickered amber. "That's a terrible plan. You got a better one." "No," Lena smiled. "Then let's go." They broke cover together, sprinting toward the bunker from opposite angles. The turrets locked on immediately, their barrels swiveling with mechanical precision. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, superheated and blindingly bright. Lena dodged left, rolled, came up running. She felt the heat of a bolt pass inches from her shoulder. Kessa vaulted over a fallen log and returned fire with her pulse rifle, her shots precise and controlled. The turrets adjusted, splitting their focus. Lena used the distraction to close the distance. She reached the nearest turret, grabbed its barrel with both hands, and twisted. The metal groaned and buckled. She ripped it free and hurled it at the second turret. Both systems sparked and died, their targeting lasers flickering out. Mura's voice crackled over comms. "Minds are clear. We're moving in." The bunker's interior was dark and narrow, lit only by emergency strips along the walls. The data core sat on a pedestal in the center of the room, a glowing sphere the size of a basketball. Lena grabbed it and clipped it to her belt. "One down. Let's move." They exited the bunker and headed east toward the urban section. The ruins were a maze of collapsed buildings and shattered streets, the air thick with dust and smoke. Somewhere above, a drone buzzed, enemy recon. Joran raised his rifle and fired a clean shot, dropping it from the sky. The second data core was in a plaza surrounded by elevated sniper positions. Lena spotted 3 shooters on the rooftops, their rifles glinting in the simulated sunlight. She signaled the team to hold. "We can't cross the plaza. They'll cut us down." "Then we don't cross it," Kessa said. "We go through it." "Through?" Kessa pointed at a storm drain half hidden beneath rubble. "Tunnels. Most urban maps have them for drainage. If we're lucky, it'll take us right under the plaza." They were lucky. The tunnel was cramped and dark, but it led them to a maintenance shaft that opened directly beneath the plaza. Lena climbed up first, her pulse rifle slung across her back. She pushed the grate aside and emerged in the shadow of a broken fountain. The snipers were still on the rooftops, their attention focused outward. Lena signaled the others up, and they moved in fast. Mura planted charges on 2 of the sniper positions. The explosions were small but loud, enough to disorient. Joran and Kessa took down the 3rd sniper with coordinated fire. Lena grabbed the second data core and they ran, plasma bolts chasing them into the ruins. The 3rd core was in the open plains, a flat expanse with no cover and maximum exposure. It sat in the center of a kill zone, surrounded by defensive drones and automated barriers. The sun beat down on the synthetic grass and the air shimmered with heat. Lena's team crouched at the edge of the tree line, exhausted and low on ammunition. "This is suicide," Joran said. His exoskeleton was scorched from earlier fire. "We can't make it across." "We have to," Lena said. "We need all 3 cores to pass." Kessa's scales flickered red. "Then we need a distraction, something big." Lena looked at the drones circling overhead, then at the barriers. She had an idea. It was insane, but it might work. "Mura, how much explosive do you have left?" "Enough for 1 charge. Why?" "Give it to me." Mura handed over the charge. Lena armed it and clipped it to her belt. She stood and stepped out of the tree line, hands raised. The drones locked onto her immediately, their weapons cycling. She walked forward slowly, her pulse steady, her eyes on the data core. "Lena, what are you doing?" Kessa's voice was sharp over comms. "Trusting you to be ready." The drones opened fire. Lena ran. She zigzagged across the plains, dodging bolts and barriers, the explosive charge bouncing against her hip. She reached the center, grabbed the data core and kept running. The drones pursued, their fire intensifying. She threw the charge behind her and dove. The explosion tore through the kill zone, disabling half the drones and shattering the barriers. Kessa, Joran, and Mura surged forward, covering her retreat. They reached the extraction point together, all 3 cores secured, their armor smoking and their lungs burning. The Crucible ended. The holographic battlefield dissolved. Commandant Thera stood at the edge of the deck, her compound eyes shimmering. "Well done, Cadet Koval. Your team passes with distinction." Lena saluted, too tired to speak. Beside her, Kessa laughed, her scales glowing a brilliant gold. Joran clapped her on the shoulder. Mura just smiled. They'd done it. Together. Graduation was a simple ceremony held in the Academy's main atrium, a vast space with a transparent dome overhead that framed the stars. 200 cadets stood in formation, their dress uniforms crisp and gleaming. Lena wore her navy blues, the fabric stiff and unfamiliar, her name and rank embroidered on her chest. She stood between Kessa and Joran, her hands behind her back, her posture straight. Commandant Thera addressed the assembly, her voice calm and measured. "You have completed your training. You have proven your worth. Today you join the Hegemony fleet as officers, defenders of peace and order across 47 worlds. Wear your rank with honor, lead with courage. Remember that unity is our strength." The cadets saluted in unison. Thera returned it. The ceremony ended. Families and mentors flooded the atrium, embracing their graduates, taking photos, celebrating. Lena stood alone for a moment, watching the chaos unfold, and felt a pang of loneliness. Her brother would have been proud. Her parents would have cried. But they were half a galaxy away back on Earth, and faster-than-light comms were expensive. Kessa found her first. The Thren wrapped two arms around Lena in a crushing hug. "We did it. We actually did it." Lena laughed, the sound surprising her. "Yeah, we did." Joran joined them, his exoskeleton freshly polished. "I've been assigned to the patrol frigate Valiant. Border duty near the outer rim. What about you two?" Kessa checked her data pad. "Training squadron, instructor track. They want me to teach new cadets zero-G navigation." Lena pulled up her own assignment, her breath caught. "I'm assigned to the Resolute, flagship of the Third Fleet." Joran whistled, a sound his translator rendered as a low hum. "That's elite. They only take the best." "Or the most controversial," Lena said. She thought of Varrow, of the whispers, of the footage that had spread across every terminal in the academy. She was famous now, whether she wanted to be or not. The human who caught fire. The plasma catcher. She hated the nicknames, but she understood their weight. Kessa squeezed her shoulder. "You earned it. Don't let anyone tell you different." Lena nodded. She looked around the atrium, at the faces of her classmates, at the stars beyond the dome. She thought of the long road that had brought her here, her brother's stories, her parents' sacrifices, the quiet determination that had carried her through every trial. She thought of Varrow's sneer, of Thera's challenge, of Kessa's faith. She thought of the plasma bolt she'd caught, the fire she'd held, the moment she'd stopped hiding. The next morning, Lena packed her bunk in silence. Kessa had left early for her new posting, leaving behind a handwritten note that said, "Stay brave. Stay you." Lena folded it carefully and tucked it into her duffel. She took one last look at the room, the narrow bunks, the steel walls, the viewport that showed Proxima B spinning slowly in the dark. She'd spent a year here. It felt like longer. She reported to the docking bay at 800 hours. The Resolute hung in orbit beyond the station, a massive dreadnought bristling with rail guns and shield emitters. A transport shuttle waited at the gate. Lena boarded with a dozen other newly minted officers, their faces a mix of excitement and nerves. She found a seat by the window and watched the academy shrink behind them as they accelerated into the void. The Resolute's hangar bay was cavernous, filled with fighters and support craft. Lena disembarked with the others and was greeted by the ship's executive officer, a Savari named Commander Hallen. He reviewed their orders quickly, his compound eyes scanning their files. When he reached Lena, he paused. "Cadet Koval, I've heard of you." Lena kept her face neutral. "Yes, sir." "You're assigned to tactical. Report to Lieutenant Parr in Section C. Dismissed." Lena saluted and walked away. She found Section C 3 decks down, a cluster of workstations and tactical displays manned by a mix of species. Lieutenant Parr was a grizzled Crayoler with a scarred exoskeleton and 3 glowing sensors. He looked up when Lena entered. "You're the plasma catcher." Lena winced. "I'm Ensign Koval, sir." Parr grunted. "Same thing. I watched the footage. Impressive, stupid but impressive." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. This is the flagship. We don't get easy assignments. We get the worst missions, the highest stakes, the longest hours. If you can't handle it, transfer now." Lena met his gaze. "I can handle it, sir." Parr studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Good, get to your station. We deploy in 6 hours." Lena found her workstation and logged in. The tactical display lit up with real-time data, fleet positions, sensor sweeps, threat assessments. She studied it carefully, familiarizing herself with the ship's systems and protocols. Around her, the other officers worked in focused silence, their hands flying over controls. 6 hours later, the Resolute jumped to FTL. The stars stretched into lines, then vanished. Lena felt the familiar lurch in her stomach, the disorientation of crossing light years in seconds. When they dropped back into real space, they were on the edge of contested territory, a region where hegemony patrols clashed with rogue fleets and pirate syndicates. The tactical display flared with hostile contacts. Lieutenant Parr's voice crackled over comms. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." Lena's pulse quickened. She pulled up the threat assessment and started running calculations, trajectories, weapon ranges, optimal firing solutions. It was just like the Crucible, just like the drills, except this time the plasma was real. The stakes were real, and if she failed, people died. But she didn't fail. She ran the numbers, fed data to the gunnery crews, coordinated with the other tactical officers. The Resolute engaged the hostiles with precision, its rail guns tearing through enemy hulls, its shields absorbing return fire. Lena worked through the chaos, her hands steady, her mind clear. She thought of her brother, of Kessa, of Joran and Mura and every cadet who'd believed in her. She thought of the fire she'd caught and the fire she'd thrown. And she smiled. When the battle ended, the bridge erupted in quiet relief. Lieutenant Parr approached her station, his sensors glowing a soft blue. "Good work, Ensign." Lena nodded, too tired to speak. That night, alone in her quarters, Lena sat by the viewport and stared at the stars. They were the same stars she'd seen from the Academy, the same stars she'd seen from Earth. But now she was among them, part of something larger than herself. She thought of the long road ahead, new missions, new challenges, new chances to prove herself. She thought of Varrow's sneer and Thera's faith and Kessa's hug. She thought of the moment she'd stopped hiding, the moment she'd caught fire and thrown it back. She'd never asked to be a symbol, but maybe that was the point. Maybe symbols didn't ask. They just rose when the moment demanded it, when someone needed to believe that the impossible was possible. Lena had caught fire, and now, out here among the stars, she'd carry it forward, not as a weapon but as a light. The Resolute hummed around her, alive with purpose. Lena closed her eyes and let the sound lull her to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new trials. But for now, she was here. She was enough, and she was ready.